a year. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I don't know, it's just kind of like chasing profits has really hurt America, and it makes me sad because it's it makes me really sad because like there's I should get political, so I won't, but it's probably the hospitals, yeah. St. Luke's. Yep. Yeah, yeah. No, oh, my mic's on. Thank you. Yeah, apparently. ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucien, over at Sir Lucien Gaming. Good morning, sir. Say hello.
Good morning.
Oh, we froze.
Hopefully we're in May,
okay.
So I'm hoping summer is approaching most of you, if you're in that continent or time zones that we're in. I've been waiting for summer so long because I want to open my pool and I'm just dying, but it's still too cold. And
yeah, no, it was just straight up hot yesterday here.
Oh, so, perfect. Yeah. I want that.
I went to a barbecue, and that was like, cool. Holy cow, because we got vaccines now and we can do things like this.
Yep.
I just got a message yesterday from one of my gaming groups, my Shadowfell gaming group, and they're just like, so when are we gonna pick back up? And I'm like, yes. It feels like it's almost over. We're gonna play games again.
Almost over. The sun is rising.
I planted grass outside, so it's growing. It's really cool.
Crazy.
Very excited. Hopefully, Lucien, you'll be able to open your pool soon.
I'm hoping soon. Last year it was Memorial Day week, and we had to wait all the way till the end of May. The year before that, it was middle of May. So I don't know yet. I've only kept track so far for the last 2 years, even though we've had it for 3, I think. So we'll see. I'm a new pool owner, so I'm learning it as I go.
Well, excellent. Yeah. Hi, everybody. We're Dungeons & Dragons talk show, not an actual play, just a talk show, and we kind of just talk about the news of Dungeons & Dragons and things that are going on in the world and our specific games. I hope you can hear me okay. I have been adjusting my microphones, which is why I had a hot mic at the very beginning of this podcast.
Had a hot mic.
Yeah, but I didn't say anything too incriminating, so it's okay. News-wise, they're not doing a lot of news. Well, they are about Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, which comes out May 18th.
Yeah.
Are you getting the special edition in your gaming store, or have you pre-ordered it anywhere, or?
When it originally announced, I thought it might be like the Candlekeep one. It might be one that I skip for now and wait for sale.
Okay.
Like you were talking about, Amazon sale, because it wasn't one that I was thinking I would use at first. But they've been doing these Lore You Should Know videos. We've been talking now about some of the domains of dread that are in there. Mm-hmm. And I'm slowly getting more and more interested because I don't know if I'm necessarily a Barovia dude. But like this one where we're talking about Harakir, or we were talking about Haslin last week, or we were talking about some of these other ones, I am that person. So now I'm starting to think, well, maybe I need some of these domains of dread, even if I'm not really into a dive into Strahd and, at the moment, but I could get some other cool stuff out of it. So now I'm starting to lean back the other way. So now I might go into my game store and pick it up, and they always order extra copies too for the cool covers. So if I want the cool cover,
I thought you were going to say for the cool kids like me.
Cool kids. They know me. Cool kid.
Hey, it's that cool guy. Get him his cover over here now. No, so I didn't put this in our notes, but I actually have a fun Strahd story. The more I think about Curse of Strahd and Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, it is a very... well, I shouldn't say very, but it is a niche part of D&D communities where they like that sinister dread kind of feel. And I think when I play D&D, I really like being the hero. Like, it's just fun for me. And so when I want to sit down and play D&D, usually I want to play Forgotten Realms or somebody's, homebrew campaign, but I want to be a hero. And even I've been plotting out, I've been plotting out games that I want to run in the future. And one of them is I want to do an Eberron game, and I want to run this Eberron game. And then another one is I just bought a bunch of Drow supplements from 2nd and 4th edition, and I want to run a Menzo Berenzin Drow game. And we were talking about this where I wanted everyone to be the same race. I want everybody to be a Drow, and they are under instructions of the Drow priestess queen, and they have to go out and do little missions for her. And then, as the game progresses, we uncover like, oh my gosh, do we overthrow the government or something, or wherever the game kind of takes us?
We're the bad guys.
I really love that, but I've never been like, man, I really want to play a spooky game. Like, it's just never kind of... For Halloween, that makes a lot of sense, but not like an ongoing, let's play a Van Richten's Guide game for however long. talking about that, I was like, man, I kind of want to play Curse of Strahd. Like, I've never really, maybe I need somebody to run this for me. Like, we've always talked about, like, we want to find somebody to run Call of Cthulhu for us or something. Because if they really love it, you're going to understand why it's so great, kind of a thing. So I was in my local city's Dungeons & Dragons Facebook group, and this guy was putting out a list of, or he's like, hey, I want to run Curse of Strahd. And he's looking for players. And so I inquired about it, and this is the first time I've ever come across this, but it makes a lot of sense afterwards. He built a Google form questionnaire. And he's like, okay, fill this out and I'll see if you're a good fit. And it had all of these questions of like, you know, do people defining their pronouns annoy you? And like, you know, things like that. So he could kind of like weed out the people that he's like, I just don't want to play with you. And he was really interested. He wanted to play, but the more I was looking at the time commitment and stuff, I'm like, if I want to run all of these games that I'm interested in, I don't really have time to commit to a 1.5-year Curse of Strahd game, because that's what he wanted to do. I was hoping that it would be like a quick, you know, I don't know, 5 sessions or something, get from whatever, but it would not be. It would be level 1 to 10. Like a fun grind, and I'm sure it would be wonderful. But he really wanted to emphasize that we're going to role play, we're going to, you know, limited maps, lots of theater of the mind, and it's going to be spooky, and we're going to do all this stuff. And I was like, that's exactly what I need. I just don't have the time for this right now. But I thought that was cool. Have you ever thought of doing that, looking for players? Like I don't know why that surprised me, but at the same time, I'm like, that's such a great idea.
Yeah. Well, when you do your games online, your pool expands to quite a bit of unknowns, right?
Yeah.
So to me, your pool has always been your friends, people you work with, or maybe their friends. So you kind of have a little bit of trust that somebody's not going to bring a complete psycho to your house to play a game. Whereas if you just post your address on the internet or something, and you're like, hey, come to my house to play a game, you're going to want to be a little bit more, you know, circumspect about who you're bringing in. Same kind of thing happens with online. So when I jumped into Roll20 and I wanted to run a game, I definitely tapped all my friends first. Like I was like, I want to play this game. I want to run this Numenera game. Do you guys want to play? And I gathered together, you know, 4 people to play some Numenera with me. And then when I did Dungeons & Dragons, it was kind of the same thing. I had enough friends that wanted to play, but then I had some ideas of games I wanted to run that my friends didn't want to play. So then I started thinking, well, what if I posted it on Roll20 and just found just people I've never actually talked to? But how am I going to try to figure out who's going to be a good fit for me? And that's where I thought about questionnaire or finding a way to say, this is the game I want to run. If you're not wanting to play that game, don't sign up for this. Don't come here with your, you know, I don't want to play your Pathfinder game. Well, that's what I'm running. I'm running the Pathfinder or whatever. So, you know, I think in that circumstance, I had to think about that a little bit more. And the funny thing is, I found of the 3 players I talked to on Roll20 that had submitted to play in a game of mine, Storm King's Thunder, and they actually played. They were all people that we actually enjoyed. It became friends of my friends, and we still talk to those people, even though they came from random parts of the country, and it was cool meeting them and just making more friends that way. So it was a cool experience doing it that way. I don't know if it's the same if you do your local game store, what kind of quality or experience you'll have if you do it that way, but I had a pretty good experience so far reaching out to people I did not know.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was just funny because it made sense to me. And but I was surprised at the same time. I don't know. And then I was just thinking, like, no, if I'm going to do that, I want to do something extremely similar. Like, because the way I was reading it, I'm like, oh, man, like somebody who is very against, somebody who's like, I don't know, I don't want to sound too mean, but like anti-trans or just like, I think that people who specify their pronouns are dumb and things like that, they're going to read this and they're going to be like, I don't want to be a part of this group if that's the way this guy thinks. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like you're weeding out. Yeah, exactly. And it reminded me a while ago, or back in college, I had a friend and he loved anime. And specifically he had a Ghost in the Shell like doll, and it looked Well, it was in like tactical gear. It was like a Ghost in the Shell, like a doll from Japan. And he wore it on his backpack, and he would go around college with it on his backpack. And I asked him about it one day, and he's just like, well, it does two things for me, Jordan. People I don't want to talk to, it keeps them away. And people I do want to talk to, it attracts them to me. And I was like, you're right. Because if I go to anywhere, like, I don't know, if you go to a convention I don't know, you go somewhere and you bring out some dice, all of a sudden, oh, you got dice? Oh, you play D&D? Those are the people I want to talk to. So it makes sense.
That's why I like wearing the D&D t-shirt around town. Like, I've met a couple of people, a gas station attendant. He was like, oh, you play D&D? And he starts telling me about his campaign, or just random people that you'll see that will recognize something from your shirt that's maybe a little bit obscure, so it's not maybe right in your face. But it's like, like if I did a Jordan with a fighting die D20, somebody's going to recognize, oh, you Dungeons & Dragons player? Yeah. Or you do something like, I've even found, crazy enough, the Vox Machina kind of stuff, if you're wearing anything from their stuff, it's amazing the fans you'll bump into just in random places.
That's straight up a cult now. So it's
that's huge. That's how I met LB.
Yeah, very cool.
That was funny, that the whole LB connection. Well, she worked in the same building as my wife, and they knew each other that way. But my wife had mentioned I play games, and then LB had mentioned, does he play Dungeons and Dragons? Does he know this? And she's like, and my wife's like, he probably does. I'm like, yeah, I know Critical Role. I know, I've watched Matt Mercer, and that's how we ended up all getting to know each other even better.
Yeah.
So then, we have an actual friendship now, and it's awesome. So just by a common, a common hobby that we like.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's super cool. So full circle, going all the way back.
Back to Strahd.
Yeah. I am excited for it. But I have pre-ordered it, but I wonder if, I don't know if I'm going to run a game, but it was one of those books that I'm like, this just felt like something I needed to own. And maybe reading through it, I'm like, wow, I really do want to run, a Lamortia game or something. And I've had a good time reading the older Strahd stuff and making my videos. It's a very rich and interesting world, Barovia, or Ravenloft, I should say. So
what's interesting is I feel like if there was a game you were going to play that your wife would be ecstatic about, it would be a Barovia dive. It would be a Strahd
100%.
game.
Yep.
So I keep encouraging every time you bring this topic up that yes, you should run a game, and your wife should be one of the players because she loves vampires so much that yes, why haven't you done this for her?
I don't know. And I guess I've always wanted to run Strahd, and I think I told you I found a way you can run Curse of Strahd in like 1 or 2 sessions.
Perfect.
Like everyone's at level 7 or 8, and then you literally just start the campaign in the castle, and your goal is to like find Strahd and kill him. And so, but I don't know if that has the same feeling, because if you play through the whole campaign, Strahd shows up a lot, and he like messes with you, because the whole idea is like, I want to emotionally break you rather than just kill you, kind of a thing. Because you're level 2 characters, I could kill you. I'm a vampire, but
I'm
but you're right. My wife does love vampires, and she would love me to run that, and we just haven't yet. So maybe when this comes out, I'll be super inspired. So
there you go. Or even a game that's really based on a couple of those movies you've watched. I mean, you've watched some of those really cool vampire style movies. Those are cool worlds you could put a D&D game into.
Yeah.
Because you could use the D&D 5e rules, but you're just, you're doing some of that cool stuff that would harken back to all those movies she's watched,
It's true.
I think it would be interesting. So yeah, I think I'm interested. I'm on the fence yet because I did not get Candlekeep. And I really want a book that definitely has player options in it, extra stuff. But I'm curious to see what the next book is, because maybe the next book is the one that's really going to grab me. Is it going to be Magic the Gathering setting? Is it finally going to be, they've been talking about some of the other classic settings. Is it finally Spelljammer? Are they ever going to give us Spelljammer? Because maybe I'll get that.
Well, so they were talking about
Because they said they still had 2 more
Yeah, so no,
classic releases or something, like
Yeah.
like 2 more.
there was an article that came out that it was the transparency team or something, and they answered a bunch of questions. I totally forgot about this because we had AJ on last week, and I don't think we talked about it. But basically, or not basically, Wizards of the Coast is going to release 5 products this year. Not announce 5 products, but like release 5 products. And 2 of those have already been released. No, is it just Candlekeep, or did they release something before Candlekeep? No, Candlekeep, Van Richten's Guide. So those are 2. And then we are going to get 3 more books. And they said that one of them is their big adventure, which is the Tomb of Annihilations, the Icewind Dales, those kind of things. And that is one that like Chris Perkins is working on and stuff like that. So that's one. And then the other 2 are probably going to be these other campaign settings. And somebody else on Twitter said that there are going to be 3 classic campaign settings. So it's Van Richten's Guide is one of those. Then we have a big adventure. That means we have 2 more classic campaign settings. One of them has to be Dragonlance. I just keep thinking that. Because the books are coming out. I think they're going to tie the whole world in and pull in that fan base back to Dungeons & Dragons. Because Dragonlance hasn't had a supplement since 2nd edition, I think. Like, it's been a while.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
So one of them is going to be Dragonlance, but classic settings. Like, it makes me... I'm like, what could the other one be?
I mean, yeah, you're talking about Greyhawk and Dark Sun and Stera and Spelljammer.
I don't think it's Greyhawk. Because Greyhawk is too close to the Forgotten Realms. But, like, maybe? I don't know. They did release Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which had a lot of Greyhawk information.
Which is really Greyhawk, yeah.
So,
and so was Tomb of Annihilation.
It could be Greyhawk, and they're just tying it in. Who knows? Yeah. I don't think it's going to be an expanded Forgotten Realms, even though it just doesn't feel like they would do that. Spelljammer, I don't think it's going to be Spelljammer. Mystara was one that I was wondering, which is the basic BX D&D campaign setting that I've been reading about a little bit, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of stuff there, and so it could be Mystara and the whole Hollow Earth. They have a whole Hollow Planet thing, which is really cool. And so you go down certain paths and you get into the Hollow World, and there's a sun in the world, but you're on the outside of a ring, and so that, or a sphere. And then Dark Sun is an obvious choice, but we haven't received any playtest material for something like a Dark Sun. Like, and it's still early, like it's May, but like I would think that we would see playtest material of like the Kreen or the Trikreen or whatever the ant race of people is, and
right, because they were prominent in that. But that's one part of the world. They might not be as prominent in a different continent. They could go a whole different direction. I don't know if they'll do Dark Sun. I think it'd be a stretch. But like a Planescape or
and Planescape is probably what it is going to be. Yeah, I forgot about Planescape.
There's a bunch of them out there. That
really defining the planes and how to jump between them, and Sigil, like a Sigil book, like a City of Doors book would be awesome, because I would love to run games and you could do that. And then it's like, okay, we got to hop over to Pandemonium for a little bit and then hop back over to Sigil. Like, that's cool.
I'm interested in Hollow Earth one again, because I just watched the Godzilla vs. Kong movie that you can see on HBO now. And spoilers, but maybe Hollow Earth is somehow connected. But it's a monster movie. You can go watch it. But I was like, oh, this is cool. We need D&D like this.
No, I start reading these old campaign settings, and I'm like, I want to make all of the videos about it, and and I just don't have time, but like, it's really cool. So
well, and I read them, and I come back to the same thing we say all the time. So this is really the broken record podcast, but I want to play with a DM who is absolutely fanatical about those worlds. I want to play with a fanatical Dark Sun DM. I want to play with a fanatical Spelljammer DM. I want to play with a fanatical Mystara DM, just to get the feel, because I know they'll put the passion, they'll put the work into making this memorable for players to play in this, because normally everybody wants to play those other worlds, and maybe these DMs who have this passion in these worlds, a passionate Eberron DM can say, this is my chance to show them why I love Eberron so much. I want to play with those. That's why I want to play Numenera with that passionate Numenera ninth world person, that the Strange. all those. So we always want that because I just think it'd be fun to be able to do. And one day, maybe we'll find those DMs out there that are willing to run those games for us.
Well, no, that Wildmount game was the same thing. Like, I had zero interest in a Critical Role game. But after playing it, I was like, no, this is a fun world. Like, I like it, you know, and
the DM's passion
slightly different. And yeah, my Dungeon Master was very knowledgeable about it because he's a big fan and he studied a whole bunch. And so, and it was cool. I think that's one of the reasons I kind of like the Forgotten Realms too, is it's fun to look at a map and be like, wait, we could just go north? And you're like, yeah. And like, what is there? And it's like, well, there's a city called Baldur's Gate and you can explore that. And that city has a whole history and a whole bunch of stuff. And I think that, I mean, that's just fun. Like and the saddest thing about the Forgotten Realms is they need to make a sandbox adventure where it's like, we've talked about this before, but it's like, that's what I think a lot of people want is, if I just start walking west, what do I find? And it's like, well, the ocean, but you know, so.
Yeah, I have enjoyed as a Dungeon Master when I introduced a couple of people to the game who had never played Dungeons and Dragons, and I got to introduce them to Forgotten Realms. Those are some of my most favorite, memorable games that I've ran because one, they got to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons and they had a great time, and two, I got to show them my passion for Forgotten Realms because I love Forgotten Realms and I love to show them why I love Forgotten Realms. What are the cool things that are happening here that'll draw you in and make you want more? And that's, you know, I just love that idea of it. So I'm excited. We'll see what books are going to release. We don't have a lot of news now because we're right before a book release. In fact, we're within 2 weeks at this point because we're in May, so it's like May
18th.
Yeah, it's one of the teens where they come out on a Tuesday, I believe.
Yep.
It'll come out and then we'll have it on our shelves. We'll take a look at it. It's going to have some stuff for players. It's going to have some stuff for, obviously, for Dungeon Masters, for you lore people out there. It's going to have some stuff for those that are just collectors and want it on their shelf. It's another book for you. And then we'll probably, I feel like they do about a week of it being out. They do a week of a little bit more promotion, and then we finally hear about the next thing. So I'm guessing end of May, maybe a week after the release.
With 5 books, they're going to have to talk about it at the end of May.
We got to start talking about the next one.
So it's going to be like, buy this book, but we're also working on this one. But they won't announce anything until Van Richten's Guide is out, probably. Yeah. Because they want to just hype up that one book.
Which makes sense. I mean, you're selling a product, so.
But I don't know. Yeah, Gary in chat was like, I hope that they do like Caricature or something. And there's a bad stigma on the old like Asian adventures and the Middle Eastern Al-Qadim, and so I don't know, even Dark Sun has a lot of like slavery and stuff, and they're just hot topics now that I don't think that Wizards wants to tackle. But I would encourage you, go look on the DMsGuild, because those properties are still valid to like make content for, and a lot of people are making some really good stuff. And they're sourcing the right people when they make it. And so, like, case in point, that updated Zakara campaign setting that I reviewed on my channel is really good. And I wanted to run, like, an Al-Qadim setting, like, immediately after that. So,
very cool.
News-wise, we had a lore you should know about Harakir, which is the mummy setting, the Egyptian setting for Ravenloft. And I think that's a new one. Like, I don't think that was an original one, but I'll have to look back. It didn't ring a bell when I was looking at it.
Yeah, I feel like what they've said, it's not one that was fleshed out very much. It was one that is only mentioned a little bit, I believe. But it definitely was one of the ones that was based on, like, the monster trope. Because when we were talking about the Domains of Dread, there was a Dracula one, there was a werewolf one, there was a Frankenstein one. Those were all kind of covered, those classic old school monster mash movies from, the 50s and 60s. And so the Mummy is clearly within that one. And this was this kind of Egyptian ruins and, old civilizations. And this guy, the main bad guy that has this one, was somebody that the gods won't let die. And that's part of the problem. That's part of what's going on in this Domain of Dread. So I definitely recommend you go and listen to it a little bit to get another idea of another Domain of Dread. It sounds like a cool one because me and you have often talked about desert-themed characters and even campaigns. You ran a little bit of your campaign was desert-themed. And those are always fun to bring in. So I think that domain of dread could be useful for just about anybody that wants to, bring in something like that.
Yeah.
And
I listened to a podcast a while ago, and they specifically had desert elves in there.
Yeah, cool.
in their game, and I was just like, I don't know why that, because I always think of elves are like forest whatever, but like the desert elf, like that just is a cool. It's cool to say. It's cool to think about. What does that even mean? So
my desert mage concept, I just love the whole idea of
so good.
All the stuff around some type of desert themed spells, and I just thought, this would be
What's
so
the
cool.
Naruto sand guy?
Gara.
Yeah, I always loved him.
Carry
he
the
control
big thing
sand.
on the back. I love it.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Very cool. So that's pretty cool. That's out there on their site, so you can listen to them talk about Harakir, very mummy-like if you want to run in that campaign, and I think, or run a campaign in that domain of dread, which I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But we had movie stuff.
Movie stuff. Did you ever watch Onward?
I did, because a bunch of people told my wife that it's like a D&D adventure.
Yeah.
So she had watched it with my niece, and they liked it, and then they turned around and said, "Oh, you're going to love it because it's like Dungeons and Dragons." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'll watch it." And it was an animated show, so it wasn't necessarily on my list, but I like Pixar stuff too. And so after they had watched it and said, "You'll like it, D&D, it's kind of like D&D stuff." And then I did watch it, and it was a very touching, very cool, fun story of
so fun.
A couple of brothers and and just adventuring, and it was a lot of humor in it. And there was even some sad, really heart-wrenching moments, and it was good. It was a really good, just family kind of show. Pixar always, knocks it out of the park when they do their shows.
No, they do.
But really very D&D like. I thought very kind of.
It was a fun spin on the world. Like, what if magic existed, but now we're it's easier to turn on a switch rather than to learn magic to make
they don't
light,
do it.
And so it's like now we're just regular. So there's like the trash unicorns killed me. Where it's like they don't have raccoons eating their trash. It's these unicorns that are in the city. Like, oh gosh, it made me so funny. But so Onward you should go check it out if you like Dungeons and Dragons. I think you'll like the movie. It's very cute. It's really fun. And they're making a role-playing game, and it's called Quests of Yore. And I don't know much about it other than that. I'll put it in chat here so you guys can check it out. But I thought it was kind of cool. Like you use dice. It comes with a bunch of stuff like minis and quest cards and tokens and stuff. And I think you have a dungeon master, and they're leading you through stuff. And there's probably a little adventure in here as well. But
is it a 5e variant, or it's its own game?
I think it's its own game. Yeah.
Oh, so it's its own team.
Just kind of a. Cool. But yeah. There's a player's guide, a quest guide. You get 16 dice and 151 cards. A phoenix gem that plays the central role in the film is also part of this thing. And so, I think, I was going through this, and I didn't, they're trying to sell it. It's going to be released May 12th, I guess. But I didn't find online anybody like playtesting, or not playtesting, but like, showcasing play. Like, here's how you play. But anyway, I thought it'd be fun. I'm always curious about other systems. And since that was such a cute movie, this is a great way to hook kids into Dungeons and Dragons, is what I was thinking. Because they watch that, and then they are like, "Dad, I want a wizard staff," and you go find a tree branch, and he's running around with his tree branch, and then all of a sudden you're like, those characters, like we could go on an adventure. So this is the perfect, like, let me get my niece and nephew, or let me get my my children into Dungeons
for
and
that
Dragons.
little kid in your life that runs around with a cloak all year long, even though it was part of his costume for Halloween, but he still loves it so much.
So I thought that was cute. It looks really fun. Anyway, so that's coming out on the 12th, and if it's really awesome, maybe we should
take a look at it.
We should take a look at it, and
I'll see if it's at the game store.
Dress up and play it online or something. That'd be fun. The Dungeons and Dragons movie has started filming. This is John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. They have worked together on a lot of stuff. The latest movie I saw that they worked together on was Game Night in 2018.
Which was fun.
Which was hilarious. And you should 100% go watch Game Night. It's rated R, but it's super funny. And it was like the death of the comedy, I think they were saying, because I'm like, that is such a funny movie, but comedy as a genre is changing, and people are like, is a movie designated a comedy, or is a movie just like a superhero movie with comedy kind of a thing? And so there was a tweet today by Jonathan Goldstein, and he's like, the campaign begins, and it's the movie slate for the first take. They're like, okay, it's take one. We're starting the movie.
I'm so scared because not many D&D movies have ever been good. Can't really even name one that I thought was good. So now I'm worried. What if it's not good? What if I hate it, Jordan?
I mean, we all thought that about the prequels, and we were right. So
there you go.
He wrote Spider-Man Homecoming, though. That was a great movie.
Good movie.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. He wrote that.
I know a lot of people like that one. Yep,
So,
I don't think I've seen
and I
that
think that the two of them, John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, I think they're writing this as well. So they're very, very entrenched. I know that John Francis Daley is a nerd in the Hollywood area. So
do you think it's a story of players that get sucked into the D&D world, or do you think it's a story about characters that live in this world?
I have no idea. We've talked about it, and what I want is the Lego movie where they have like high stakes and everyone's really immersed in their world, and then halfway through the movie the camera pulls back and you realize that it's people at a table. And I think that would be how I would approach a D&D movie. I think it would be a lot of fun. People would be invested in the silly fantasy, and then just that peek behind the camera of like, oh, they're just at a table with dice, and then dive back into fighting the dragon, and so I think that would be fun. But so who knows? I don't know. Like,
and do you want a comedy? Do you want something more serious? Do you want a Game of Thrones style, or do you want game night funny? You want comedy? I
want comedy. I want like a Marvel movie, I guess. Like they have a heart, or Onward. Onward is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It has good heart. You care about the characters.
Plenty of comedy.
They're going on an adventure, but there is just fun stuff that happens that they are unexpectedly. They're like, I didn't know what. I don't know, but I want a good adventure story, but it doesn't have to be like a pie in the face kind of thing. So
full puntastically done.
D&D for me has never been Game of Thrones, dark, gritty, because at the end of the day, we're all laughing about the fact that you cast gaseous form on yourself and then the dragon inhaled and sucked you into his lungs. Like, what does that mean? Like, we're all laughing. Like, that's just funny things that happen, and Game of Thrones isn't that. And you could play a dark and gritty thing with D&D, but I think the general public, or at least how I like to play, is just like, that's funny, So.
I think that I just noticed the difference between how me and you have entered the Dungeons and Dragons gaming, because you entered when you were more college age or above, and I entered when I was 10, and we took it serious. Like, we didn't have the goofing around or talking about like what we did at work. We were 10-year-olds who thought this was the coolest thing in the world, and we took it super serious, like a 10-year-old takes it. We were like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing, and we have to be able to do this. And if we didn't complete the quest, we were devastated or whatever. And it was eventually when I got older that we were doing all of this stuff where we're bringing in the puns and we were bringing in outside stuff that was fun, and it was more lighthearted, and we joked a lot more with our buddies from work or wherever. But early on, that first developmental stage of playing for me, we took it way too seriously. We were just like, we have to do this. And the adventure it was gritty adventure. And we were heartbroken when we couldn't save somebody or whatever. So I just wonder, that's interesting. So, because I would want to lean more towards that, only because it would be my nostalgia as a kid. But I see exactly what you're saying is I want a fun game. I want a game with heart. Yeah. Or a movie that has the heart, but it has the comedy to follow it.
Well, and I think that's just the nature of storytelling nowadays is you don't... Lord of the Rings was very... Not Lord of the Rings, sorry. Game of Thrones was very real. And I guess Lord of the Rings in the sense, too. There were actual physics. There were things like that. Magic was like kind of... I don't know, but like in... And they had a huge problem to take care of. I'm going specifically with Lord of the Rings, but like Dungeons and Dragons is so fantastical that I think
how do you not take it that route?
Yeah, I think you could definitely achieve the nostalgia that you're looking for, because if that camera pulls back and it is kids, like that's even better, because you see that they are so invested in this, but at the same time, they're angry that their friend spilled Cheetos on the map or something, and that's a fun little joke, you know. And so, you guys should go watch The Gamers. I think it's on YouTube for free. And that was that's how I liked they made a D&D movie and it's very funny. So
Stranger Things captured us playing. We were serious about it. We got mad at somebody if they messed the map up. If somebody couldn't make it, you know, we were mad at them because we got to finish this adventure. Yeah, so we were that's exactly how I remember D&D starting. That's not how I play it now. Now it's more, we're having a lot of fun. I mean, if you watch our game that we play on Tuesday nights right now, we're all laughing and making jokes and doing. We have an Act Inc. game going right now, so we're a franchise in the middle of the dungeon. So I'm totally in that genre now of it, but I just remember, like what you're saying, as the kid, the real. But I think it'd be good. I'm hoping it's great. I'm gonna root for it to be good. I'm gonna hope. I'm gonna try not to let my expectations get so out of control that when I do see it, I hate it. I want to try to lower my expectations if I can. I don't know if I'll be able to. I'm going to try, but I hope it's good. I hope it's something that a lot of people go and say, oh my God, did you see that Dungeons and Dragons movie? I hope they make like 5 more of these. You know, I want that to be what happens. I hope it's not a joke like a few of the other movies have been. They have been very bad movies. Really bad movies. You would not tell somebody, hey, you want to know what Dungeons and Dragons is? You never said go watch the Dungeons and Dragons movie at this point. You know what I mean? So
Silver Boulet says, would I want the comedy to be at the table or in the game world? And I was like, I think the comedy, like for me, I think the comedy would come from the way you use logic at the table and how that logic is interpreted in the game world. And so it's like, I don't know, like you stab a guy and they're just like, and you're like, okay, it takes 4 damage. And then you're like, wait, don't I get sneak attack? And then you're like, oh yeah, you totally get sneak attack. And then it shows the rogue again, like flipping up his knife and going like, no, you know, that's funny. Like, and then the game is the world's still happening. So I don't know. That's how I feel about it. But Jeff Goldblum is going to be on a D&D podcast for I don't know how long.
We don't know, but he's going to
Jeff
play some
Goldblum
Dungeons
himself,
and Dragons.
the actor.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
And we were a little confused because we thought we were familiar with this podcast called Dark Dice, but we are not. So I looked it up, and it's a horror actual play D&D podcast. They have it looks like 15 episodes. They're all about anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. I don't know any of these people. They're all a lot of them are actors and stuff, so they must just be friends with Jeff Goldblum. But this is all over the news because he's a major actor, and they're like, yeah, he's going to be on this D&D podcast. That's weird, huh? So the podcast is called Dark Dice by Fool and Scholar Productions.
I'm gonna have to look at it because I'm
curious
Jeff
to listen,
Goldblum
not just for him.
Fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're drawing me in just because I want to see Jeff Goldblum play some Dungeons and Dragons. I always like it when we get quirky people that you like in movies and pop culture that you love. Like when I learned that Jack Black was going to be, he played a Dungeons and Dragons game. And I was like, oh, I got to see that because I just love Jack Black. Or Jeff Goldblum's another good one. You know, if they said, hey, we've got Chris Helmsworth going to play this, I'd be like, all right, well, I got to go see this. You know, let's see how this goes.
Did you ever watch the Stranger Things cast play D&D then?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't get all the way through it, but I definitely watched them play.
It's fun.
And because it was just interesting to see them actually have to actually do it. So it was pretty good.
No, it's fun. So, I don't know. That's all over the news. I'm curious. I don't even know when it's going to start. It's just like he's going to be in this Dungeons and Dragons podcast. So he's going to play a wizard apparently. So that's fun.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Well, his latest character that I love the most, not his latest because he's done a bunch of stuff, but when he was in Thor, I loved him in that role. And I'm just like, oh my God, play that character in a game because that would be so good.
Too funny.
Or like Benicio del Toro as the Collector. Imagine him playing in your Dungeons and Dragons game. Yeah. You know, Oh, that'd be great. So you guys tell us who you want to play in your Dungeons and Dragons game. Some quirky actor out there that would be really fun. Chris Pratt.
Yeah,
Really
I was just thinking Chris Pratt. He would be an ideal D&D game person for me. But I'm also trying to think of just like those creative people, like actor-wise or director-wise or writer-wise, like. And actually, Dan Harmon, he did Harmon Quest and a bunch of other stuff. Yeah. He's a huge role-playing fan. He would be a lot of fun to run a game with. So, or play in a game. So.
And you can watch him do all that. Yeah, he plays it live as a comedy. They like book comedy stores, and he plays Dungeons and Dragons with his friends, his comedian friends. It's pretty funny.
It is good. Yeah, Harmon Quest. Check it out. It was a late. It was an addition to the CISO streaming service that went bankrupt and failed. But the Harmon Quest is still out there, and there's 3 seasons of it, and I highly recommend it. It's very funny.
Maybe like a Steve Buscemi. That could be interesting.
Too funny. So we talked about ZINE Quest back in February, and ZINE Quest is a Kickstarter February month-long thing of just like little Dungeons and Dragons supplements that people make. I got 2 of them fulfilled yesterday, which was really exciting. And one of them is Pungent Quest. Pungent Quest is for the upcoming RPG Land of M, which is based on the comic book Rickety Stitch, which I think you should read, Lucien, if you haven't.
I should.
But this is one of these things that is very open to... You could figure out how to use this in just about anything, but the whole mechanics is like you roll randomly to see if there's an encounter, and your whole goal is to try and gain these keys. So it's not a specific dungeon that you move around. It's like a hypothetical one that you're creating on the fly, and then there are all these really just silly monsters. One of them is the magic seal, but it's a seal in the ocean that attacks you. Yes. One of them is the spelling bee, and he's a bee that runs around, and if things are misspelled, he attacks you. It's so funny, and I just love the poltergeist. And so the poltergeist uses telekinetically attacks with objects and creatures in the area. And when he honks, the PC has to make a resistance check or be stunned. Like, it's so funny. So I don't know. This is really short. It's only like 40 pages or something. But it comes with a bunch of magic items and NPCs. And we talk a lot about just, does this inspire you? And I love things like this. Like, even if I don't run it, I want to use the Great Sword, which is a sword that looks like a cheese grate. And like, that's so fun. So I might run my friends through this. We'll see. It looks really fun.
I hope they like puns. Yes.
And the other one I got was Wizard's Grimoire. And I feel bad. I haven't even opened it. I have it printed out. But it's a RPG supplement where everybody's a wizard and you have like cool magic battles and stuff, I think. So I have to dig more into it. But I remember backing it because it looked cool. I just don't remember why I backed it in that way.
Very cool. That'd be a fun little world to have where magic dueling was a big thing, and you have a mechanic that represents a magic duel between two mages in a set area.
No, I love I love and hate the Harry Potter dueling system, like of just that. But I like that there's a way to do that, because I'm like, no, if there were 2 wizards. Like, you're egotistical already if you're a wizard. You're going to be like, I'm better than you. Let's go. Like, think of any MMORPG where you can examine someone else's gear, and then you're just like, I'm better than you. I could take you in a fight. And you're like, well, let's World of Warcraft get out of this zone and fight.
Throw the flag down.
And so I think specifically, like, you think of knights sparring and stuff. Wizards would do the exact same thing. Definitely. And I am saddened that we don't have a fun mechanic really in any edition of D&D, I don't think, has had like a cool wizard's duel like that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's something we should have, something to write down on the old list of maybe.
Which kind of goes back to, again, why I dislike Counterspell. because
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, I'm going to like that. There's got to be a cool like test of will kind of way to have an attack like that. So I don't know.
I like that idea.
We got 15 minutes left. Do you just want to talk about? Do you want to do a Monster Manual, Monster College, or do you want to just talk about
you?
games?
I'm good either way. I played some games. Did you play some games?
I did not play some games, but I had some fun
you played
ideas.
no games.
And I have Numenera stuff to talk about. So let's just talk about games. So, how's Dungeon of the Mad Mage? I wanted to actually talk to you about Dungeon of the Mad Mage because I have been reading and rereading a lot of the adventures. Because I want to make a video of, I want to rate all of the 5e adventures that have come out so far. Like worst to best, what is the best one? What is the worst one? What is the one I want to play immediately? And what is the one that I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to touch this in any way. And Dungeon of the Mad Mage is interesting because it fits in this weird, there's not really a story, but like, if you just kind of want to have some fun, it could be really good, but you're loving it. And I have been talking with some other of my friends, and they're like, I didn't really care for it. But from a dungeon master standpoint, they didn't want to run it because there wasn't like a fun story. It was just, I don't know, this room has this. So where are you in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and why are you enjoying it so much?
Well, we had just left the 5th level, and you could take a couple of routes down, and we chose one and realized we have skipped a level and gone down another level. So now we're down on 7th level. And things have gotten a little bit crazy. And that's what I like about it. It's getting crazier and crazier. And it's big enough that you're going to see almost all the monsters, right?
Okay.
To fill a Dungeon of the Mad Mage, you have to use almost all of the Monster Manual. You have to use almost all of Volo's Guide. You got to use all these things to pack it full of stuff for people to do. And I think that's what I like about it, because you get to see these things that you've only read about or only flipped past in some of the books. You haven't got to fight them before. And so we're getting to do some of those things. We saw some Umber Hulks recently. We just took on a stone giant where we fought a stone giant. And then there's weird things that are happening because obviously it's the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So there's weird stuff for you to investigate. And it's been really cool. We just hit and we told everybody we're doing spoilers from now on. So that's the only way to describe this as being fun. And I'm really loving the idea about it. We're at a funhouse part where there is a miniature keep that sits in a big cavern. When you try to go to the miniature keep, which looks like a dollhouse to you, you immediately get shrunk, and then it's an actual size keep. And there's stuff going on. And you're like, oh my God, this is cool, because it's basically like you came into a cavern and it's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids all of a sudden. And now some stuff is going crazy. And I just thought that's such a fun thing that you can throw in the middle of a Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Maybe it doesn't make sense if you throw it in the middle of Dragon Heist Waterdeep, or maybe it doesn't make sense if you do it in Storm King's Thunder or one of these other, adventures that you play. But it seems to fit in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So it's really cool. Our Dungeon Master is not shy with giving us powerful magic items, so we're getting to play around with that. He's beefing up the encounters so that they're hard and they're challenging, and then we're getting to fight lots of things. And I just love the variety of it. But it is a dungeon crawl, right? So if you're not into, finding clues that lead you to the mystery, and then you finally find the bad guy, that's not really this. This is, hey, what's down that hallway? We have no idea what could be down. It could be a rust monster. It could be a goblin market. It could be a bunch of undead. It could be something else that's been left and nobody's touched forever.
Instead of exploring down, it almost feels like, I wonder if I would enjoy it more if you were trapped in there and your goal was to get out.
Trying to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess that's my question is, what is your goal other than exploration? And I love exploration, but like
we were given a job by AC Inc., who we were hired on to map the levels, and so that they could then further exploit the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So we're setting up, not only are we mapping it, but we're also finding places to set up little forward bases that other AC Inc. employees can come to and fix up. and then they will adventure out from there to go to other places and do things and exploit, the dungeon of the Mad Mage, because there's magic items and there's gold and there's stuff that's been left, and we found tapestries that we put in our inn. We found a dwarven throne that we've brought back and given to people and gotten a reward for. There's all these weird stuff down here that you can find ways to use or trade or do things with if your dungeon master has the imagination enough to kind of make those things relevant than just something that's been left and isn't there. So it's definitely Monster of the Weekish. It's definitely eclectic. You were never thinking, well, how did this griffin live down here? There's no food. There's no source of this. Or, it's just, you have to suspend that. We're in a magical world. So, it just doesn't, we just threw a fireball 2 doors down. So we're going to ignore the idea that how do things live here ecologically.
Yeah. It's a magical mage dungeon.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's going to repopulate and stuff's going to come back. And so that makes it dangerous going back and forth, up and down. And I think the further you get down, the more a story will unfold. Whereas the first levels aren't that way because there's too many adventurers have gone through there. There's really not a lot to find because other adventuring parties have probably found it. It's not till you start to get deeper and deeper where less and less people have traveled that I think a real story will begin to unfold, but you've got to get there first, right? So, and you're going to get from level 1 to 20. So it's going to be long. It's going to be a 2-year campaign, and not everybody's ready for that. Most people stop at 10. We just got to, I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, because I'm a 6'3". Can't wait till I get to 6'4" of the cleric, the arcane archer cleric, which we've been having fun. So it's been good. I love it. Our dungeon master is really good at doing it. When we talked about it, he's running it for one group before us, which helps him fine tune and really run it well for us as the second group coming through, because he understands the mechanics better. He understands the room layouts better. He understands how the monsters could fight better than maybe he did it in that first run through. So I think that's another cool thing that's going on there. So it's fun. I like it. Tomb of Annihilation is still my favorite. This has got to be probably second at this point. We did Dragon Heist and that was fun. But I was like, I could take that one or leave that. I'm digging this one so far.
That's cool. Yeah, it's one that I'm not sure. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say because I haven't fully read it. But now I'm reading Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and I'm also reading that to familiarize myself with those adventures before I make this grand epic video. Thank you, Steve Zirk, for the $5 donation in chat. Hey, that was very nice. He asked if you are familiar. He said, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the first edition module Castle Greyhawk, but it is also filled with puns and pop culture references. So I should definitely check that out.
Gary's Castle, for sure.
That's where Greyhawk came from, right? Because he had a Castle Greyhawk, and then they were like, well, we have a world Greyhawk. Yeah,
they made dungeons at first.
Yes, they made dungeons.
And then it was a full castle, which was a big dungeon, but then it expanded into a world. Yeah,
so, that's cool. Well, are you you have to go back to the 6th level then?
Well, that was we've been talking about it. So we had a big argument about it because our group's like, well, wait, we got to go back, right? Because we're mapping the thing. And like a couple of us like, but we're already here. Let's see what's in 7th, and then we'll go back to 6th. And if we survive 7th, 6th will be way easier by the time we get to there, right? So I think we're going to explore 7th for a while, and then we will go back and do 6th. I think is how it's going to work.
Okay.
Before we go down to 8th.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting. On Tuesday nights.
Yeah, there you go.
On Twitch.
Tuesday nights on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Sir Lucien.
But what did if you didn't play, your brain must have been consumed with thinking about playing.
Yeah. Well, so we've been renting movie theaters. Like we did this for my wife's birthday. And we went and saw Knives Out, which is a great movie. And we're forgetting, because of the pandemic, we haven't been to the movies in so long. And, like, I love movies, but I really love the movie theater
soda.
experience.
I do too.
And just, it's so much fun. So we decided to do it again, but our options were really limited. And we ended up watching the 2018 movie The Meg, which is that giant shark movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's pretty good on a big screen.
It was great on a big screen. Not a good movie. Not a good movie at all. Did I have fun? The most fun. And so we rented that with a bunch of our friends and we watched The Meg. So that's why I didn't play D&D last week, but or RPGs. But going back even previously, I'm running Numenera, and I'm running an adventure called The Devil's Spine, and my players have, one of the characters has gotten a parasite on their back. And they met the mother of the parasite, which is this giant worm named Devola. And Devola's like, yeah, I can remove that, but you're going to die. And so they're like, well, how do we save his life and remove this? And they're like, she's like, well, I need 3 things from you. 1, I'm going to need this weapon called the Impossible Blade that is basically like a lightsaber scalpel.
Nice.
And she's like, I'm going to need you to find this numbing neurotoxin so that we can, so that when we do remove it, he doesn't die from the most amount of pain he's ever had. And then the 3rd one is like, you're going to have to do something for me. And she's really worried about this alien creature society called the Insidious Choir. So they have these 3 objectives, and that's kind of the whole basis of this. And so they're on an adventure, and they chose to go get the Impossible Blade first. So they went back into town and they checked around, and they found out that there is a weird tomb, ancient pit thing that they have heard that there's rumors of the Impossible Blade being associated over there. So that's where we left off, is they're going to descend down into this. And I was reading this morning and last night all about the adventure that they're going to go on to find this Impossible Blade. And it's weird. We were talking about Numenera, and do you use minis? Do you like map out stuff? Because this is actually a tomb, like, and there's maps and stuff, I think I'm going to have to draw it out and just be like, no, you're here. Like, do you want to move forward? Oh, there's a door. How do you get past this door? I'm really enjoying Numenera in that everything has a level. And we've talked about this a little bit, but like, when you're playing D&D and it's like, I want to bash down the door, there's not, like, really in your mind, you're like, I don't know, I guess it's like AC 10, and there are rules for, like, wood is this AC, and it usually has this many hit points or something. But in Numenera, straight up, it's like, okay, this door is level 5, so you have to do a 15 or higher to inflict any kind of damage on it. And then even then, it has a resistance of damage because it is a door of like 5, so you're only doing 3 points of damage, and you have to do this much damage to break through the door. And that has been really useful. And it's kind of funny. So the reason I bring it up is I was like, well, how are they going to get past these doors? And the doors are level 10, so that means that they have to roll a 30 on a 20-sided die in order to inflict any kind of damage on these doors. So they really need to like puzzle their way through it. But I don't know. It's been really fun. Like, I'm excited for tonight. We're going to play tonight, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, and Numenera is so much fun because you're getting the weird. Like, that's the word that always comes up, because you're like, it's strange. There's some technology, but it also seems magical, and there's you're never quite sure what the place you're exploring used to be. You might have some ideas, or your brain might, take it in different directions, but you're never sure what it actually was. And that's what I liked about reading a lot of those adventures as a dungeon master, because sometimes they would tell you what it used to be. Like, it used to be a satellite in space, or it used to be this, and then you'd be like, oh, they'll never know that's what this is, and you're just like, I found where I had the most fun was describing things to them in a way that was literal, but didn't give away what it actually was. Like, so I used magical terms and stuff to keep them from thinking about technology, even though it was a technological thing I was describing. And I found that was fun for me to try to find a way to see how long before they went, wait a minute, is this a walkie-talkie?
Yeah.
No, it's just like...
And that's, like, reading through the Numenera book, he even says, like, Monty Cook says, like, to really get the flavor of the game, don't tell your players that they have picked up a laser blaster. Like,
Right.
you say it's a weird piece of metal that's in the shape of a boomerang, and when you hold the bottom of it, it emits a light, and that light disintegrates other stuff. And so then they're just like, so is it a laser blaster? You know, and that's fun. And I'm remembering when we first started playing, Nathan, who was on the show, my Dungeon Master, he's playing in this game, and everyone rolled on the trinkets table to get a random trinket, and he got, his trinket said, so you have a cylinder that's hollow in the middle, and it's metal, and it's got like a lid that you can screw on, and whatever liquid you put in there, it will stay that temperature inside this. And so he looked at me and he's like, so I have a thermos? And I'm like, yeah, but that's the fun of Numenera, is you have to describe it in some weird way, because your players would be looking at this going, not your players, your characters in the world, they've never seen a thermos, you know? So yes, my light boomerang. Thank you, Mr. Silverbelay.
It's my light boomerang.
But anyway, yeah, I'm excited to play tonight. I will definitely talk about it next week, and all that other stuff. Real quick though, for those of you who were might have seen me post about our badges. Yeah, I wanted to talk about badges. So I went through the company that YouTube has partnered with, which is Teespring, on making some of these badges. And for those of you who ordered badges, I apologize, but we are canceling all of the orders and you will be refunded your money. Teespring assures me. They want to charge shipping on every single badge. So I told them that, you know, the majority of the people that are interested in these badges, they want to buy like some for their players maybe. So it's like, I want a bard, a wizard, a cleric, and a fighter, and a dungeon master, and I want to buy those, but I don't want to pay shipping on every individual badge and have them shipped individually. It was a lot of back and forth. I got in a nice I got in an actual like phone conversation with the people at Teespring to try and sort this out, because it just felt weird that you would lose so much money. Ultimately, because of the way their system is set up, they can't offer that. And the only way for us to get bundles like that together is for me to upfront about $1,700 so that Teespring has an inventory already paid for and created that they can sell. I don't have that money to do that. So I'm going with another company. Hopefully we're in talks, and we'll see if we can get to a good deal. And that means that I'm going to try and do a Kickstarter. And this will be my first Kickstarter, and I'm a little spooked about it, but keep that out in the world, or in the back of your mind or something. And we're going to try and do a Kickstarter. And then I was going to ask if you guys are interested, because it's a Kickstarter, I can make a bunch of new badges. And do you want like a Saturday morning D&D show coffee badge? Like I can do a coffee cup with a D20 in it or something. That'd be kind of fun.
We want all the adventures as a badge.
I could work on that as well.
Annihilation, Storm King's Thunder.
Those are yeah, we can find some copyright free icons maybe, and I'll try to figure that out. But I need to think of some stretch goals and stuff, and I'm going to work with a friend of mine who does Kickstarters. But I'm excited. I think it'll be a lot of fun. It just means that I apologize for those of you who ordered the badges. We're gonna try again. Round 2 is the idea.
Round 2.
Yeah. As always, follow me on Twitter. Follow Sir Lucien on Twitter for updates to that and other things that we are working on. I will definitely make a video and talk about the badges when we get to Kickstarter time. So until then, anything else before we take off, Mr. Lucien?
That is it. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and I can't wait to see you all next week in our show. Make sure you comment and rate those podcasts so that we can jump up in those ratings.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Dig out your old Apple iTunes login and give us a review. Yeah, we will see you next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Goodbye, everybody.